Trump approaches homeless veteran woman. What he does next shocks everyone. It was a crisp autumn evening in New York City. The bustling streets were filled with people hurrying to their destinations, taxis honking, and the glow of neon lights illuminating the sidewalks. Amidst the chaos, a frail homeless woman sat on the cold pavement, wrapped in a tattered army jacket. Her face was lined with years of hardship, her eyes weary but still carrying a spark of resilience. Donald Trump, former president and real estate tycoon, was walking out of one of his luxury hotels when he noticed her. Unlike the countless others who had passed her by without a second glance, Trump stopped. His security detail hesitated, but he raised a hand, signaling them to hold back. The woman looked up, startled to see the towering figure standing before her. "What do you want?" she asked, her voice hoarse from years of shouting over city noise. "What's your name?" Trump asked, crouching down to meet her gaze. "Sarah," she replied hesitantly. "Sarah Collins." Trump nodded, taking in her disheveled appearance. "You were in the military?" Sarah straightened slightly. "Marine Corps, served in Iraq and Afghanistan. But when I got back, things didn't go the way I planned." Trump was silent for a moment, then stood up. "Come with me," he said. Sarah hesitated. "Why?" "Because this isn't where you belong," Trump replied firmly. He led her inside his hotel, past stunned guests and employees. He ordered his staff to prepare a room for her, complete with fresh clothes and a hot meal. Sarah, overwhelmed, sat at the edge of the lavish bed, disbelief washing over her. The next morning, Trump arranged for her to meet with a team of specialists, veteran support groups, job placement advisors, and medical professionals. He publicly announced an initiative to help struggling veterans get back on their feet, personally funding shelters and job training programs. News of the encounter spread like wildfire. The media buzzed with speculation. Was it a publicity stunt or a genuine act of kindness? But for Sarah, it didn't matter. For the first time in years, she had hope. Standing before a crowd a month later, clean and strong once again, Sarah spoke into a microphone. "No matter what you think of the man, what he did for me changed my life. And if this initiative helps even one more veteran like me, then that's something worth believing in." The world watched, shocked. Love him or hate him, one thing was clear. Trump had done something that no one expected. Margaret's story had echoed across the nation. With Trump's support, she had secured a new home, a job, and access to health care. The media was buzzing about this miraculous transformation. But for Trump, this was just the beginning. A few weeks later, he decided to make an unexpected visit. A visitor from the White House. Margaret was sitting in her new home, flipping through an old photo album. She looked at pictures of herself standing tall in her uniform, lost in memories, when a knock came at the door. When she opened it, she was stunned to see Donald Trump standing there. He was accompanied by a few advisors and security personnel. Margaret stepped back in shock. "Mr. President, what are you doing here?" Trump smiled. "I just came to say thank you to a hero." Margaret struggled to hold back tears. She invited him inside and led him to the living room. She grabbed an old kettle from the kitchen and prepared 2 cups of tea. Trump glanced around, taking in the medals and old military photos hanging in the corner of the room. A voice from the battlefield. "Margaret, will you tell me what you went through during the war?" Trump asked, taking a sip of his tea. Margaret took a deep breath. It was time to speak the pain she had kept inside for years. "I was on the front lines during the Gulf War. I worked as a nurse, but my job wasn't just bandaging wounds. We had to carry the injured to safety while bombs were falling all around us. I went days without sleep. I watched my friends die in front of me. One day, our base was attacked. The explosion threw me into the air. When I woke up, everything was chaos. But I didn't run. I went back in to save the wounded." Trump nodded, his face filled with deep respect. "And what happened when you came back?" he asked. Margaret let out a bitter smile. "That's when the real battle began. The government forgot about me. I couldn't find a job. I had no support. Over time, I lost everything. Eventually, I had no choice but to live on the streets." The room grew heavy with silence. Trump took a deep breath and looked Margaret in the eye. "Heroes like you should never be forgotten," he said firmly. "This country owes you, and not just you. There are thousands of veterans out there in the same situation. Something needs to change." A promise for the future. As Trump finished his tea, he reached for Margaret's hand. Promise me, Margaret, you will never feel alone again. And I promise you, I will do whatever it takes to make sure this country never forgets its veterans. Margaret couldn't hold back her tears. In that moment, they weren't just a president and a former soldier. They were two people who had survived life's harshest battles. After that visit, Trump started investigating the conditions of veterans across the country. And on that day, in Margaret's home, he made a vow, one he was determined to keep. This story is not just about changing one person's life. It's about revealing a bigger truth. Veterans should never be forgotten. Margaret's experience represents the struggles many former soldiers face after returning home. They fought in the harshest conditions for their country, but once the war ended, many were left behind. They didn't receive the support they deserved. They were forgotten by the system. This story delivers a powerful message to the audience. True heroes aren't just those who fight on the battlefield, they are also the ones who keep fighting through life's toughest challenges. Remembering them, supporting them, and honoring their sacrifices is our responsibility. And perhaps most importantly, changing one person's life can awaken the conscience of a nation. Do you think veterans receive enough support? What should be done to help them live better lives? If you had the chance to make a difference in a veteran's life, how would you help them? Have you ever thought about helping a homeless person you saw on the street? What might their past be like? How did this story make you feel? What do you think was the most impactful moment?